So I'm not in the rental today, guys. I'm actually out at work, and I kept saying to myself, I was not going to do this review yet on budget rental cars, but unfortunately, I gotta, right? I really gotta. I've been holding off on this for over a year, and in that time, it's almost 2 years now. Like in that time, situation just hasn't gotten better. I wasn't traveling as much for a while. I typically travel 2 to 3 times a month. So I was down to like every other month or less. So I really wasn't, sort of tripping on how things were. But, this all started about a year and a half, 2 years ago when I got into a budget rental car, and the actual car had white powder all on the interior. And I thought, like, oh my God, this is like baby powder or what? They swapped out the car, and the very next car had all of this white powder everywhere. And I was like, man, 2 cars in a row. I'm not going to go back for a third car. And I was already on my way somewhere. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go and deal with it. I took pictures and everything. I did call and then sent an email to complain. And I think they may have just given me like a discount off of another rental or something, which I already get some of the best rates there anyway. So time went on, and it was either some kind of substance on the fabric or on the seats, or the vehicle wasn't washed, or there was dirt and trash in the gear shift. It was just as if, or the cup holder or whatever, it was like as if they weren't cleaning these cars after every rental to the extent that would be absolutely necessary. I had other issues, like one of my family members has a CNI dog, has a guide dog, even if I tell them, they'll still charge me like a cleaning fee or something because I had the dog in the car and this and that and the third, and it just was getting a little much. I kept saying this year I was going to switch. I was going to switch back to National Emerald Club, because the Emerald Club actually makes a lot of sense. Sometimes your rates are a little higher than what budget would be, but at the same time, the service you get is well worth it. Not that I haven't had issues with other rental car companies, but this with budget and the Fastbreak program has been consistent. And I always make it a point whenever I go to a budget location and I'm hanging out, like say I have to hang out on a line and wait. So Fastbreak means that they have all your information, and with budget you actually can prepay for a vehicle. So the only thing you're responsible for once you get to the airport is the actual deposit, which for those of you who don't know, spoiler alert, your deposit is different if you're in a club like this than it is when you're just going to the counter to reserve. So because I'm because I'm a Fastbreak member, my deposit is a little lower. I've been with them for a very long time, and like I said, I don't have to present pretty much anything. Every now and then they'll be like, hey, can I get the card that you can I get the card from you? And I'll hand them the card, and they'll just do the deposit right there. You typically have to show your driver's license when you want to check out. But if your card's in the system, the only thing that they do is charge the card that's in the system for the deposit, right? Because you've already prepaid the rental, right? So, so I started having issues with that. Like I'd get there, my Fastbreak car would not be ready. Normally Fastbreak, what they do is they assign you a car, they put it on a board, you go to that car, you get in that car, and you're on your way. And there's typically a separate Fastbreak check-in location. You bypass the counter where the lines and everything are, right? So, it got to the point where every time I showed up at Fastbreak, they never had my reservation in properly. I had no clue which vehicle to take. Oftentimes I would get to a counter and they would be like, oh yeah, there's a lane over there. There's a zone lane over there. Just pick something off that lane. That was mostly in Detroit. And everywhere else, they'll just assign me a vehicle right then and there at the counter, but I still have to wait at a counter in order to, even though it's maybe the Fastbreak counter, still got to wait at a counter. After hours, Fastbreak is a little problematic. You really, if you're going to be late arriving at any airport, you probably don't want to use budget. I was the last one to check in Louisville, Kentucky, and literally they were shutting gates behind me, trying to get me out of there in a dirty vehicle with cement and everything on the upholstery, concrete cement on the exterior. The vehicle was extraordinarily dirty. They exchanged it with no problem the very next morning, but I've just sort of become immune to some of that stuff at this point. Anyway, so recently I went to Atlanta. Now, I've never ever rented a vehicle in Atlanta. I've not ever been to their counter. I had no idea what was happening, where I was going, and what I was doing, and I actually found it to be pretty cool. You get out, you go to your luggage claim, you get on a train, you go to the train over to this place, you get off, you go down to the area, you walk out to the Fastbreak counter, which is actually in the middle of the parking lot, which is typical. And once you're there, you check in to get your vehicle. So they didn't have screens on, so there were no names on the screens. I talked to the lady in the counter. The lady asked me for the card that I put the deposit on. That I prepaid the rental on, and I showed her that card with no problem. And I said, but my card is on file. I said, I don't ever have to pull out the card that I have prepaid the rental on. She says, well, here, you have to show me the card. We have to verify the card, and then everything goes on that card. And I said, no. I said, I've been doing this for years now. I said, we finally got this worked out, and it seems to work okay, and that's the only reason why I haven't changed. And she says, well, you're going to have to give me a different card because you paid with the wrong card. It doesn't matter what card I pay with. It matters what card I'm renting a car with, right? Paying the deposit fees with. I said, and if it's a glitch in the system or something, it's a glitch that's been working for over a year, so I don't see where the problem is. Because I did have a problem in the beginning where I did not understand how they actually did that whole prepayment and deposit system. And once I got that worked out, literally, I always use the same card. I always go the same. I do everything the same way every time. I never deviate. So anyway, so she says, well, you're going to have to pay a deposit and the rental on this other card. I said, well, I don't. I said, I tell you what, go ahead and try. And in my mind, I'm thinking, I know I don't have enough on that card to pay the rental and the deposit. So just, I don't understand why we're not just simply checking me out like we normally check me out. When I get to the gate, they'll run the deposit on the card and we'll be on our way, right? Well, she says, no. And she goes to run the card and she says, well, because you don't have enough on this card, you cannot rent a car with this card today. You're going to have to use another card. What kind of crazy crap what is going on? I said, listen, why would you deviate from what every other airport in this country that I've flown into? Now, mind you, I only frequently fly into 3 to 4, maybe 5 airports on a regular basis, right? So I'm like, based off of those, which are some of the bigger ones like Fort Lauderdale, Fort Myers, I rent from Louisville, Kentucky, from Atlanta. Well, obviously that's my first time in Atlanta. From Detroit, Michigan, Louisville, Kentucky, and so forth and so on and so forth. So she says, well, that's our policies. And I said, lady, I said, listen, I normally pay a $250 deposit on the card every time, and we're always prepared for that. And she says, your deposit is $300. I said, ma'am, I respectfully, you're telling me something that's not true. I'm okay. Let me make a phone call. So I go and I make this phone call. And when I get Budget on the line, Budget says, hey, there's nothing we can do for you but return your money for the rental. I said, well, what are you talking about? She said, there's nothing we can do for you but return your money for the rental. I said, I'm in Atlanta. I need a car, and you're telling me you can't provide me with a rental car. She says, yes. I said, this is really the last straw with you guys, because literally there's no, why would I ever come back here to rent a car if this is the type of treatment? Like, you can literally have, someone do everything according to your system and your policies, and then you have a person who wants to change that system and policy, and then here we are, right? Like I said, I don't understand. She said, sorry, it's the best that we can do. And she sent me an email. The email said that they were going to send me the deposit, the rental minus $150. And I said to her, I'm reading an email now. It says you're going to send me the rental minus $150. The rental was only $150. And she said, oh no, we're sending your entire rental fee back because you prepaid. I said, well, how long is that going to take? She says about 7 business days. So I got off the phone with them. I walked down to National Enterprise, National Enterprise something else right now. And when I got down there, literally, I told the lady who I was. She says, well, what is your phone number or email address or something? She asked me for. She asked me for my ID. I gave her my ID. The minute she put in my information, she said, Mr. Williams. She asked me to verify my address and my email. Once I did that, she says, well, what size car do you want? I says, well, full size, it'd be fine, intermediate or full size. She says, okay, and that'll be a rate of what was like 40 some bucks a day. And she says, what car do you want to put it on? And I says, well, how much is the deposit? She says, there won't be a deposit. So they rented me the car for, actually it ended up being less money than I was paying at budget. They automatically had my Emerald Club membership, my address, everything in there. Only thing was different was the credit card. And I handed her the credit card, same credit card I just given to this lady, and she processed my rental. And I went out to the Emerald Club lane, to where they keep the cars, and they told me to take anything out of the Zone 1, and that Zone 1 had SUVs, intermediate size cars, full size cars. It had a plethora of vehicles available. I grabbed one. I think I rented a Jeep Compass, which was a very nice vehicle. I got in. The vehicle was completely clean, which I haven't had in over a year. So I was very pleased. And but in that aspect, I literally am giving Budget a 1-star review. I did it the other day on the Detroit location. I will make sure that I do it on the Atlanta location on Google. And I'm probably going to file a complaint with them in regards to the behavior of their staff at the rental site, and also the behavior of staff on the phone line. Because if you're going to join a club to bypass counter for rentals, you definitely have to have a set process, and it needs to be standardized across the country. Which is what I do with the Emerald Club, typically I have a deposit and I have the rental amount. They don't have a prepay, so I'm paying all of this at the airport, right? And I never have a problem, right? I don't have a problem with adhering to something like that. But with Budget, with the prepayment and the Fastbreak program put together, listen, you got to treat people with dignity and respect. And I talk to people everywhere I go. Whenever I'm standing in those budget lines or riding the budget bus over to the rental car lot, we're all saying the same thing. We can't all be saying the same thing and all be wrong, right? Because we all have the same problem. Fastbreak doesn't work. It's never right, especially in cities like Detroit and Atlanta. You know what I mean? It's rarely ever right elsewhere, and your vehicles are not clean. How do you have a cleaning team and a staff? Listen, I get it. The economy is what it is. It's hard to find good help. It's hard to find people who really want to work. I get all that kind of stuff, right? But your frontline staff does not take pride in the product that you're putting out. You got to do something about that. If you don't do something about that, you're going to lose customers like myself. And I get it. Other customers are your cash flow, right? Customers like me that travel on a regular basis, that are spending 2 to 3 days a week in a rental car or more, we're what's holding your company up, right? If we're not renting from you, and it's much more convenient for us to rent somewhere else, then you don't have a customer base, right? Now, I'm just one person, but doggone it, you got a 1-star review for me, and I'm sure, and I know as a business owner, anytime I get a bad review, it is hard. It is a very hard process and a tedious process to come back from that. And I would doubt very seriously that any of your Fastbreak customers are giving you a 5-star review. If they are, I would be surprised. And I'm wondering where in God's name are they even renting? And I would love to see a location where I don't have an issue with the rental at all. But I mean, I haven't seen that yet. So in over a year, I haven't seen it yet. I thought it was the pandemic. I thought it was this. I thought it was that. But at this point, it's over, So basically, this budget, this is a review. Me complaining because I had to get it out. And this is our breakup because I'm going back to the Emerald Club with National and Enterprise. Hasta luego.